Oseo,
Oseo,
wave the great turkey feather. Oh, anyhow, that's what we're celebrating this week. The Americans call it Thanksgiving. In Native America, there are people who are going to have sort of mixed feelings about it, and certain adjustments have to be made. Mostly and traditionally, if we can put it that way, Native Americans do not dine on the turkey bird. So celebrations may have mixed ideas in the subject. So that's what I'm going to talk about. I have in the past been able to be in the classrooms, especially in Nevada and some in San Diego, where I've had the right occasion like today to talk about this occasion called Thanksgiving and what the bird that everybody's dining on is really about. By all reckoning, the bird we're talking about, turkey, well, it got its name from the country called Turkey, having nothing to do with anything here, but some idea that somebody somewhere was importing pheasants from that country, and how it ended up calling this bird that. The bird we're talking about, by reckoning, has its origin out here in the Anza Borrego, as did also the horse. So that's been quite a long time ago. So it's a genuinely Native American bird in that way. It is through and through a feral creature. It does not, lend itself to domestication. And so it's almost tragic. When I lived up in Tomales Bay, they have the turkey farms there. I never actually went to them, but I could hear them. And all the fellows I knew around there, they would, secure jobs, working there. And variously, they told me how hard that it is there, because he says it's like being with people who are locked up in jail. It's a very emotional experience, even for some of those tougher blokes like that. The only, I would say the species, but a section of these birds that, however, were brought into some kind of being tamed was the Aztecs. The Aztecs actually managed to do that and cultivate these birds. Now, all of the birds that are being dined on are actually Aztec turkeys. I like that. But these birds are very, very intelligent, much the same as people. And caging them and locking them up is, a feeling of, something sad, if not tragic. So I have to have that word in here in that way. In my display here, right down here, this is a table setting, but it's a good portrait of the great and grand bird, and his name is Zitja Danka, the great turkey bird. And here I have in Paribo, I've had this for about 60, 70 years in the shape of a turkey. This is for offering, to make offerings. Kind of the whole gist of it, instead of, eating the sacred person, making offerings to that sacred person. And here I have a sketch of a story to go with this. In Navajo, the turkey is called sa. And the mythical origin of the people we're calling Navajo, it's a Spanish name for them, meaning keepers of the great field. As the Spanish found them, they were farmers. Otherwise, their name is Diné, or not Diné, the people. Up in Colorado, if you go down to basically the western Colorado, and west of Durango, if you've been over there like that, is the area. La Plata Mountains, and also La Plata Mountains within the San Juan Range, which has given its name to the river that flows from there and forms sort of the northern border of the Diné, the Navajo country all the way over to the confluence of the Colorado. It kind of frames it in. So in that area, in the La Plata Mountains, there's a tributary from, it's called Wolf Creek in the valley. The valley is formed by a mountain overhead, and that's Big Sheep Mountain. And this is sort of the northeastern sacred mountain of Diné. And that's where kind of the story begins. And the story must really have something very incipient in the whole form of the Navajo culture. Simply, it starts out, involving a young lad who has, some disagreement in his family. It really reminds me, I played in the Glass Menagerie, where Tom had a difficulty with his sister and his mother. So this fellow had much the same thing. His name is Diné, and he's known as the boy who teaches himself, like that. So he's got a little bit ruffled there, and he decides it's time for him to go on a journey, take a journey. And so he seems to find the right kind of a tree, he has an idea in his mind, and he manages to fell that tree and begin to shape it out, to make a kind of boat. He's going to have a kind of boat, and he's going to go down the river. So while he's doing this, the old saying, take one step towards heaven, it takes 10 towards you. So the deities in Navajo, Gye in English is called God, or in Gaelic, Gye, quite cognate. They're immortals. They see, that this isn't going to work, so they come to his aid. At least 10 of them, I'm sure, like that. And so they take him aside and said, we'll get this all shaped up for you, and we'll show you how to get yourself shaped up, what kind of offerings to make and that sort of thing. In the meantime, I should mention this fellow, now Diné, he had a turkey that was his very, very close friend. Could almost be a pet, if the bird allowed that. And so that was always with him, this bird. So one of these Gye took that bird aside to transform him. And here, this is my replica, actually, of a painting right there in that region of, this is the Ganshi, and he is the bighorn sheep deity who has the turkey on his head, and he's transforming him. And here you see the shape like this. He's making this gesture. That means transform, transform, transform. So this bird is being transformed into a special bird, we might say a sacred bird in turkey tracks. In this area, it's almost like a cul-de-sac. There's quite a few paintings. They're all paintings. They're not carved in. And turkey tracks, and this is the best of the ones that I saw there. And so this seems to be pretty generally close to where people feel that this myth originated. So that's what's going on there. And eventually, the Gye have gotten the craft all made, and there's a lot of detail of all the nice things that they outfitted it with. It ends up sounding to me something like a submarine. And so they put the fellow into this submarine and sent him on his way down this tributary of the San Juan River. The San Juan River, like coming from the San Juan Mountains, is called Navajo the river of old age, or the river of tomorrow, in that way. So I'm almost doing a story sketch here, but a lot of things happen, you can imagine, as he's going down the river in this, water monsters capture it and he has to be rescued. There's all kind of things that happen. Eventually he comes to some place, it seems, where the San Juan conflues with the Los Pinos. There's a whirlpool, or there was, before they turned it into a yacht harbor. But was a whirlpool, and his boat is twirling around. And this is a familiar illustration in Navajo sand paintings and duplicated in other ways that makes it look like a swastika. And that's because the Gye are standing on the ends of it as it twirls around to stabilize it, to stabilize this craft in this whirlpool. This whirlpool really seems to have a mythical connection to something, mythically deep, like the light below the earth or that kind of thing. So eventually he is lodged, taken up on the shore, this Diné. And he looks around. It's a totally strange country. He's totally alone. There is nobody there. And now this young fellow does feel lonely, feels desperately alone and lonely like that. And he's sitting down and he's crying like that. When off over here, then he hears, gobble, 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 gobble. And here comes his friend, the turkey, who comes to comfort him. And she puts her wing around him and falls asleep, that way. So that's kind of a gesture of this bird, of comfort. Later, after, he's recovered from all of this, and somehow something comes to his mind about this would be a good place for a farm. And how are we going to do this? Well, the bird's going to provide that. The bird manages to come up with the seeds in all of that. Here, in this illustration I've replicated from a mural or a fresco of some ancient ruins in New Mexico. It's called Pottery Mound, that the archaeologists have uncovered and recovered. They're either frescoes, meaning they're made into the plaster, or painted murals. And here's an utterly good illustration of who we're talking about here, as she or he has the wing spread and is dropping the seeds of squash and beans and corn and melon. These are all what's coming out of the bird's wing as she's doing that. The 1 foot I interpret as a woman's great foot, is what upholds this universal constellation. And over here, this is kind of a prayer stick. After the seeds are planted, the bird and a man cooperate together in sort of making a field circular, like this, for the different seeds, to grow. And then he plants these. This feather here is an emblem. Up here, the white is the cumulus clouds, and underneath is the black laden rain, and then underneath of that are the sheets of rain coming down. And he plants these, and people do plant these sticks in the ground. They're painted green or blue in order to attract the rain. All of this culture is in synchronicity, as here, so there. And that's what this is exactly about there. So in that way, then it begins to introduce the farming and so forth. Eventually, this bird leaves there and goes farther down where now Diné is, where the people are now. Say down there around Flagstaff and down there. And now all turkey birds descend from this bird. Okay? That's the gist of it. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.